Hello, welcome to the Writing Gals Trope Talk. I'm Michelle,
And I'm Victorine.
and today we are so excited to talk to you about boy next door / girl next door / next door neighbor, however you want to call it. Okay, my first experience with this trope was Meet Me in St. Louis, the musical with Judy Garland, and she
Yes.
sings a song called The Boy Next Door. Love it.
Oh,
Love it. I cannot tell you how much I loved that movie and the fact that she was so in love with the boy that lived next door to them. He moved in and she would like sit out on her porch and hope that he would notice her and like invite him over for parties, and then they would run back and forth. And I ended up my first book that I ever wrote was A Boy Next Door
nice.
because of that movie, because I loved it so much.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love Boy Next Door. I liked oh golly, what's the name of that K-drama that came out that was Boy Next Door?
I have a list of Boy Next Door K-dramas. I don't know if it's the one you're thinking of.
Yes, get to your list because my brain just like flatlined.
Most recently, or the most recent one I've watched is called Family by Choice.
I love that one. That wasn't
And
the one I'm thinking of, but that's a great one.
It's a remake of a Chinese drama called, is it Go Ahead Lover? I can't remember the name of it. Dang it! But it's the Chinese version is even better.
Oh, nice.
But it's so in that one. So in Meet Me in St. Louis, and my first book, it's somebody who moves in, who's new. But in this one, it's a version where they grow up as children living next door to each other. So they have like all these intermingled histories and experiences with each other that like go really, really, really deep into their identity and who they are, which is also like Love Next Door. Is that the one you're thinking of?
Yes, that is Love Next Door.
Love Next Door, which that's a great trophy title.
Yes, it is.
Like when you talk about how to craft a title that showcases your trope without being like completely like obnoxious with it, Love Next Door is a great trophy title.
Yeah, it's good.
There's also While You Were Sleeping with, not the American version, the K-drama version.
Yes.
Is a really good one.
That is a good one.
And My Love from the Star.
That's a good one too.
It's a really good one.
I just rewatched that with my husband.
Oh, did you?
It's so good, yeah.
And she's like super annoying as a neighbor. Like that.
Yes.
That was one of the things I wanted to bring up is like, I don't know my neighbors that well. I know their names. I have their phone numbers for emergencies. We wave at each other from our driveways. I don't like, our lives are not interwoven. So how do we take our neighbor characters and like force them together and mash them into a story? And it might be like in Family by Choice, there are bad mothers involved where mothers are have either passed away or abandoning their children, and so the fathers kind of like single fathers like support each other in raising their children, like being close friends and like being sort of like a like Family by Choice, like the title says. So you have to figure out like what force is pulling my characters together, not just proximity, that they live close to each other. Like, what is it?
Just wave at each other as they go in and out of their houses. You got to push them further together.
Yes, there has to be something that glues them together, and it might be some drastic change, like in My Love from a Star, where she's like drunk and like I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've watched it, but like, was she trying to get into his apartment?
She's trying to get into his apartment because it was next door and she thought it was hers, and he helps her.
Yeah. And I think, it's just a series of like annoying neighbor stuff kept happening to like keep him kind of like, in contact with her until like he started to have feelings. They both started to have feelings. And so one of the things that you can do is like some sort of like crisis, where they have to help each other, or there is something like outside of them being neighbors that like comes around, like maybe they end up working together, or somebody knows somebody or like matchmakers. Maybe somebody in the neighborhood tries to like matchmake them. Maybe they go to the same dog park. Maybe they just, fate is one that is used a lot, where they just are always running into each other. because they would live so close. Like they use the same gas station, the same grocery store, the same bank, the same doctor's office, and like everywhere they go, just this person is always there. But it still has to be more than that. Like fundamentally, somehow they have to get involved in each other's lives.
So the current one I'm writing, it's a next door neighbor one. And when he is having his housewarming party, the other character from the book invites the neighbor over. But it's also a second chance love because they knew each other.
Yeah.
But because they're neighbors, he offers to help her knock down a wall that she needs to walk down in her house and do some remodeling. And she says, okay, well, since you're helping me with that, I will help you with decorating your new house. And so they're definitely going to be intertwined because of that.
Yeah. So my favorite next door neighbor book or boy next door book that I've written is one of my rom-coms. Hold on, the title will come to me. I gave myself a really Keep Your Shirt On. It's called
yes.
Oh, Keep Your Shirt On. And I get that because he like works out shirtless in his driveway a lot. But they're not only neighbors, so they live in a duplex. And so they are neighbors in the duplex, but he's also her landlord. So like she has to ask him to like fix things or do this or that. And so like they're interacting that way. But then she's got this really terrible mother who's constantly trying to get her like dating in a really toxic way. And so he comes in and pretends to be her boyfriend so her mom will get off her back. So then we have, the next door neighbor thing, but we stack it with a fake relationship that they only do in front of her mom. So it doesn't like interfere with their whole life, but it just, you keep finding all these loops, ways to like tie them
together
into this business. And then because they are next door neighbors, it's different than just another fake relationship thing. They are with each other all the time.
Yeah.
And I like to study scene tropes a lot. And there's so many scenes in a neighbor romance I love. I love when their bedroom windows are exactly opposite.
Yes, that's awesome.
Oh my gosh. Where they either like as kids grew up like sending messages across or talking across or something like that, or just where they can like see whether the lights are on or off, or like throw rocks at each other's windows, or like blast the music to be annoying, or put big signs out. Like there's so many fun things you can do. So if your people live next to each other and their windows don't look towards each other, then you're missing out some great opportunities.
I agree with that one.
There's so many ways you can do acts of service, like we're helping each other, like get the mail or take the trash out or like watch the dog or like all these things that can come up where you can use those scenes to both showcase like the good character of each other, but to kind of give them more opportunities to interact. When one of them gets really, really sick and has no one else to take care of them.
Yes.
We can get some of those tropes going in. And also like you can use things like jealousy. So if one of them is dating someone else and the other one sees like someone bringing them home from a date and there's like that awkward kiss, but the neighbor's like, they're like, there's so many just delicious situations you can put them in when they live next to each other.
Totally agree with that. Yeah.
So
and it's all about, like you said, tying them together, knitting them together, putting them in the same situations together. And for neighbors, I think it's a little easier to tie them together because you would ask your neighbor can you get my mail for me while I'm gone? Or, things like that you wouldn't normally ask a stranger for. So you can think of ways.
And I think the reason I fell in love with Meet Me in St. Louis is I grew up in a really small town, like 700 people, 35 people in my graduating class, who I had known all of them since kindergarten. So they weren't exactly attractive to me at that point, I said, I need the universe to bring somebody into my life. And the idea that some new person could just move in next door and they would be this wonderful, attractive, love interest person just thrilled me to death.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that could be something you use too, where like there's so many situations where your characters might not be successful at romance, but be longing for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that like we don't do enough in romance. A lot of times we use characters who want nothing to do with love because it's so easy to create conflict that way. But I think sometimes it's good to write a character who does want love and for like this reason and that reason hasn't been able to have it. And sometimes that reason might be that they just work all the time and they never have time to socialize or meet somebody. And
Yeah.
then you just move somebody in next door and you have a chance for romance, right? So you know, there's just a lot of good things you can do with it. It's another great trope that works well with other tropes, like
Yes.
enemies to lovers or best friends to lovers or opposites attract or like all of these, like pull them together and stick them next door to each other.
Yeah.
So, is there anything you have to be careful with to like not make things go weird? Because I could think of something.
Oh, do tell. I can't think of anything.
Don't let them be creepy or like stalker.
Yeah, that's true.
And that
No
is so
stalkery neighbors.
it's easy to do. Like,
Yes.
I think I may have done that like, where a reviewer said something about, like, this was stalkerish behavior.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What?" And I was so into, like, oh, they just really liked them and, like, wanted to be, involved in their life, but they were watching out the window to see when they came out to get their mail so they could go, like,
Yeah.
what time did they come home at night, blah 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 blah, and so it's like you have to be really careful that you are showing like interest and attraction and like trying to like meet up with them without it being like, oh, this person's totally stalking them, this is really creepy.
Yes.
If they were good looking, this would be really creepy, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So that's a word of warning for this trope. I always like to give some of those if we can.
that's
um,
good.
but yeah, otherwise, um, and then there's kind of a fun problem sometimes where like, whose house are we going to live in from now on? Oh, so my Trust of the Billionaire romance is kind of funny because he buys a hotel on the beach and he wants to expand it. And she has this little beach house right next to the hotel and he wants to buy and demolish her house and she's like refusing to let him do it. And that is so they're neighbors in that way, and they're also clashing over like this house. And so when I got to the end of that story, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do about this house? Like, dang it, like I don't even know how to resolve this. And I was like, oh, wait a second, what if as a sign of his love for her, he just picks up her house and moves it so the house is still intact, and then he can keep building his hotel and she can still have her house. And it's kind of funny because then I was like, then they could live in the house and the billionaire can go and live in this little beach shack. And I just thought that was so fun.
That
So
is so much fun.
so
And if
fun.
you think that's not realistic, I actually lived in a house that had been moved.
Yes. I got into a whole thing watching like there's like YouTube channels of companies that move houses. And like they will go into a place where they've been abandoned or sold for really cheap, like whatever, and move them to a lot and fix them up, and people will come and buy them, and then they'll move them to wherever that person's property is.
So
A
the
whole
house
house.
that I had lived in had been on a campus and it had been used for classrooms and stuff. And so they moved it and just made it a residential property. And so
Mm.
some of the bedroom doors still had the impressions of numbers that they
Oh,
had
that's funny.
put on. It was really funny.
And that brings up a really good point before we get off of here. When you talk about neighbors, obviously where they live is important. It's an
Yeah.
important part of the setting. And so the houses themselves can take on so much personality and a big part of the plot. And like I talked about where their windows line up. In Korean dramas, a lot of times it's like their rooftops. They share a rooftop. So maybe they live in different places, but like they go up to the rooftop a lot. Why don't we have those in our
We need to have those.
like, they even in the country, they will have, like, their rooftop, and maybe it's I don't know. Anyways, they spend a lot of time on their rooftops, and they have gardens up there and everything, and
Mhm.
it's wonderful. So I think that, just take advantage of the house and, like, all the things that they can share. Like, in my, "Oh, Keep Your Shirt On," He has a hot tub, and so that let me have lots of really good scenes too. And so just like what can you do with this setting, besides just the fact that they're living together? They can like share a driveway, so they have conflict over the cars, or maybe one of the cars breaks down and they get a carpool, they carpool together, or their sound with their apartments. Like there's a whole French romance that they don't even see each other until the end of the movie. And it is amazing. Why?
Because they're neighbors.
They're neighbors. And so she doesn't want to have a neighbor. I can't remember why. And they remade it into a K-drama too. But so the premise is when a neighbor moves in, she tries to drive them out by being like super annoying and super loud. So she would like, really loud music, make noises at all hours of the day. She'd try and make them think that their apartment was haunted and like just all kinds of things.
Funny.
Just being like this, like the worst neighbor ever, to try and get them to be like, I can't stand it, even though the rent is cheap, because nobody will ever stay there. The rent's cheap, but I can't handle it. And then they move out. And then like it becomes just this opportunity where even though she's like making them miserable, they start fighting back, and then they're like making each other miserable. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, they start talking through the wall, because the wall is so thin that they can talk through the wall at each other, and they start communicating and opening up their past wounds and like what they really want and why they're doing this and why they're doing that. And then like they hear things going on in each other's apartments, it makes them worried, and like the other person's sick, and like all this stuff. And it's just brilliant because somebody took the time to think like, okay, what would happen like when your walls are thin in an apartment? So many people deal with that, like, but what can you do with that? So think about your setting and how it can inform your plot in fun ways. Yep. Did we figure out what we're going to talk about next time?
No, I say you get to pick.
Have we done forced proximity yet?
Yes.
Or have we done cohabitation?
No.
Specifically?
No, let's do that.
Okay, cohabitation. It's happening.
Awesome.
All right. So subscribe, everybody. Follow. Give us some likes. Send us some comments, because we'd like to hear from you some more. And if you have ideas for tropes that you want us to do that we haven't done yet, we would love suggestions for that also. So
yes,
leave comments and join our Facebook group and check out our academy at the link below, because our academy is like one of the best things out there, but so many people have yet to discover it.
Yes.
If you're a new author, mid author, like wherever level of author you are, there's probably something in there, and you can watch classes for only $10 a month. So, and I bet by the end of the year, we'll have like 100 of them.
And, it won't stay at $10 a month forever, because the more classes we put in there, the more valuable it'll get. And so we will eventually have to raise the price. So
but get in
now, and then your price will never have to increase.
Yep. Well, they save money with an annual subscription.
Yeah, they do.
So check it out, guys. All right. We will see you back here in a week. Hopefully, unless somebody goes on cruises again, which is probably going to happen. And in the meantime, have a great time writing those tropes, whatever it is you're enjoying working on. Have fun, because we all know tropes are what make romance so amazing.
They do. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.